shale, but also coming from Brazil, Norway, Guyana. There is a lot of oil in the market. So the decisions that will be taken in Vienna will be important. But what I'm trying to say is that it is not the only factor that determines the prices. There are other factors, which is the level of production growth coming from non-OPEC countries, which we expect to be very strong this year and plus next year.
I think, Fatih, the irony is this. For 40 years, OPEC was the bad guy in America, kind of the boogeyman, literally a four-letter word. Price fixers, cartels, etc. Ironically now, Fatih, is it possible that OPEC, because it is a group that gets together and tries to set output and control prices, the only organization in the world that might be able to save hundreds of U.S. oil and gas companies that are being buried in debt and can't afford to exist with oil at $55?
So the OPEC countries and their allies will take decisions in Vienna. Whether or not it will have a major effect on the prices in general, and whether or not it will help the Americans, it is another issue. But what we see, even at these levels, we expect it next year, even at these price levels next year, U.S. oil production will still grow more than 1 million barrels per day. Very significant growth. And more importantly, looking at the future, next few years, we see that the share of OPEC plus Russia in the global oil production will decline significantly, and as such, their ability to have an influence on the global oil market will slowly but surely deteriorate.
Yeah, this is going to be one heck of a meeting. And let's not forget, by the way, that the Saudi energy minister, this is his first meeting. He is one of the kings of Saudi Arabia's son. There is a lot of intrigue. Fatih Birol, wish we had time to get your offshore wind. We'll get you back on very soon. I want to talk about something other than fossil fuels. Will you do that for us in a couple weeks?
Yes, exactly. Whenever you want. With pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much. Fatih Birol, Executive Director of the IEA, by the way, will be at that OPEC meeting later on this week. All right, coming up, we continue to monitor the market. Stock futures, they're down 105 points. When we came in, they were up 30. Markets doing a 130-point U-turn on Trump comments saying maybe we'll just wait until after next year's presidential election to make a deal with China. A lot more to do here on Worldwide Exchange. We're back right after this.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
This week at Tesco, buy 2 items from our chilled party food range, like tempura prawns or mozzarella sticks, and get a third one free. So for every 2 people you invite, you can ask another for free. But who? Linda from Accounts or Julio from Magaluf 2010. Tesco, delivering Christmas for 100 years. Cheapest item free, selected stores while stocks last. Ends 1st of January.
Get what you wanted this Black Friday. Sleek new laptop. Or one of those know-it-all smart speakers. So now is the time for Sky's superfast broadband. It's totally unlimited, powerful enough for all your gadgets. And it's just £27 a month for 18 months with £19.95 setup fee. Another great deal. Pause your new 4K games console and search sky.com. Sky Fibre areas, speeds vary by location, no traffic management policy. See sky.com. Prices may change during this period. Terms apply.
All right, welcome back. It is 5:48 here in the morning, and if you're just joining us, wow, things really took a turn. I mean, we had a bad day yesterday, worst day for the markets in 7 weeks. Futures were higher when we started the show at 5 a.m. Eastern. All of a sudden, we got comments from the president saying, Maybe we'll just wait until after the 2020 presidential election to make any kind of a trade deal with China. Markets did not like that. There's also the threat of 2 new tariffs on European goods totaling about $2.5 billion. Europe has threatened to respond. And if that wasn't enough, remember yesterday we got new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports out of Brazil and Argentina. Suddenly we were talking about solving one front of the trade war with China. Now we're talking about pushing off that deal and opening up 2 new fronts. Did you follow all that? I'm not sure I did. But Dow futures, they're down 112, so somebody is paying attention. All right, let's find out what else you're going to be paying attention and talking about this morning. Rescue us, Rahel Solomon. I'm trying to keep trading in my mind. It's 5:49 in the morning, and I'm like, what's happening?
It's been a news-heavy show in general, so we're going to lighten things up.
Please, help us.
Yeah, okay, so more and more chief executives are using corporate jets for personal trips on the company tab.
How's that helping?
Well, I'll get to the better stories a little bit later, but it's keeping investors in the dark. So according to Reuters, the average cost of flying climbed from roughly $96,000 to $107,000. With the increase in cost comes higher taxes because of changes the IRS made to limit the number of deductions a company can claim on personal aircraft use. So companies can typically deduct expenses ranging from a pilot's salary to aircraft depreciation when planes are used for business purposes, but not when used for personal trips. Even more, because the SEC does not require companies to disclose lost deductions, investors may not know the true cost of corporate jet uses. Don't you hate that? Every time I ride in a personal jet,
yeah.
What's
the closest thing you can get to time travel? Well, I've actually met hedge fund managers who part of their strategy is they look for companies whose CEOs fly commercial.
Okay.
And they say that's going to be a well-run company because they're so obsessed about cost control that they won't do this. Because, by the way, once you do that, I think that's probably an addiction, is my guess. Once you go private, not sure you can go back to Newark, Terminal C, hang out for a few hours with multiple delays.
Especially not Newark. And maybe you're not eating chicken sandwiches. But if you thought the chicken sandwich wars were over, you were mistaken, because McDonald's is making a late entry into the battle. The fast food giant announcing that it's launching 2 new chicken sandwiches at select locations in Knoxville and Houston. So the company is testing both the crispy chicken and deluxe crispy chicken sandwiches through January, and also hinted at a perhaps larger rollout in 2020. This comes after franchise owners requested that the company release a premium chicken sandwich that would position them to better compete against Popeyes, of course, and also Chick-fil-A. McDonald's has been doing chicken sandwiches forever. You're just going to slap a premium label on it and
maybe I guess they want to reformulate it, right?
How can you reformulate a chicken sandwich?
I don't know. I'm not saying I agree, but listen, the chicken sandwich wars have done well for people.
Yes, they have. Also, someone who's done pretty well.
This is a cool story.
Tennis icon Roger Federer is making history again. Swiss Mint has created a 20-franc silver coin to honor the tennis champ. So in addition to having the most Grand Slams in men's tennis history, he's also now the first living person to receive the honor. Swiss Mint says that it will make 55,000 units of the coin. Pre-sale began on Monday, and it'll last until December 19th or until the coins have sold out. A 50-franc gold coin is scheduled to be released in May 2020.
So I guess one could say that indeed the Fed has indeed printed money.
Yes, I am always amazed at how much energy and how quick you are on your feet when you get like 4 hours of sleep.
That much? Rahel, thank you. Great stuff. Sure. You did save us. Appreciate it. All right, so you got the trade war. You saw those headlines. Stock futures, they're down 100 points right now. So what exactly is ahead for the markets? We're going to talk about it, but also why you need to stay invested. Some data that might make your head spin. You're going to want to hear this. We're back right after this.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
It's College Football Conference Championship weekend, and TuneIn is your home to hear all the champions crowned. This Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the SEC Championship. The undefeated LSU Tigers, led by the Heisman frontrunner quarterback Joe Burrow, look to cap their perfect regular season. However, it won't be easy as their opponent, the Georgia Bulldogs, will be hungry to pull off the upset and earn their ticket to the college football playoff. Catch all the action on TuneIn. Search college football to find your game.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
I have no deadline, no. In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China.
All right, so welcome back. If you're just joining us, what the president is referring to is a trade deal with China. And what he's saying is, hey, maybe we don't need a deal now or even early next year. Maybe it's better to wait until after the 2020 election to do any kind of a trade deal. That he talked about is a trade deal with China, by the way. Markets did not like it. Futures were up 30 points. Now they're down more than 100 points right now. Pretty big U-turn. All right, let's talk about this and longer-term strategies with Kristen Bitterly, head of capital markets at Citi Private Bank. Kristen, thank you very much. When you came in this morning,
I did.
When we said, please come on the show, you did not realize, like, oh my gosh, we're going to have breaking trade headlines.
Snowstorm and breaking trade headlines. Amazing.
Well, it's a three-pronged trade front, right? We got potentials in Europe. We've got this steel and aluminum in Latin America. Now you got, hey, maybe we'll wait a year to get this deal done. How do you navigate and advise your clients through this almost every day?
It's like a gray cloud that's hanging over us, right? Because trade does have the ability to drive markets. And over the past several weeks, or you could even say the past couple of months, that positive rhetoric has been driving markets. And the reason for it is it matters. So if we were to have full-blown tariffs, it could take global growth from 2.9% down to 2%. It could completely erase the $700 per U.S. family that were received in the 2018 tax reform. So what are we advising our clients to do? Actually just stay the course and avoid market timing. You could have a tweet that basically tells us we're close to a trade resolution, the markets rally. You have something like we saw this morning, the markets sell off. So stay invested. And here are some pretty sobering statistics. We did an analysis of the past decade. If you missed the top 10 best performing days, it would have taken your per annum return from 8.5% down to 1.3%. If you missed the top 20 days...
In a decade.
The top 20 days, top 20 trading days, you're in negative territory. So stay the course.
You've wiped out a decade of gains.
A decade of gains.
In an amazing bull market by missing 20 days in 10 years.
In 10 years.
Okay, so that said, there's three scenarios that seem to be out there right now. And please tell me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
One is we get the new tariffs on China December 15th, and we get new European tariffs. Scenario 2, no Europe, we make some kind of a deal there, but we do get China. Number 3, we don't get anything new. We get some kind of peace offering. So double whammy, single whammy. No whammies. Do we change our strategies for those scenarios?
At this point, it's hard to make any portfolio decisions based on that because the probability is really unknown. So the last scenario that you mentioned is kind of status quo. That's where we're at.
That's where we are now, and things
have
been pretty good.
And it's actually where we've been at for, like I said, the past couple of months. It's just the market
past year, feels like.
the market has this reaction that if things feel like they're going in the right direction, we'll see a slight rally. If they feel like they're falling apart, we'll then see a pullback. In terms of tariffs, yeah, that's going to have an impact on markets, and we would expect...
What if we get the full whammy? We get Europe, we get new China, we've got Brazil, then what?
Look, that's not our base case.
We buy protection? How do we protect ourselves?
I think one thing that the market is giving us the opportunity is when you look at volatility, we'll have to look at where it is this morning, but when you look at volatility over the past several weeks, it's actually been really muted. So one of the things for clients who are nervous about staying invested, one of the things that we recommend is just buying protection. With volatility relatively muted, you can buy protection, you can basically use the dividend yield on your portfolio to buy protection and get you through the next couple of months and even the next year. So that's a way to confidently stay invested.
That is good stuff. I loved your stat. If you missed 20 days in 10 years, you wiped out all the gains for a decade. Buy protection if you're nervous about tariffs. Great real-world advice. Kristen Bitterly, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that is it for us on a very busy morning. I will see you live from Vienna, Austria at OPEC on Thursday and Friday. Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, and there's breaking news out of China causing stocks to swing from gains to losses. President Trump said there's no deadline on China trade negotiations. It might be better to wait until after the election.
Meantime, the U.S. considering 100% tariffs on some French goods in retaliation for a digital tax.
And we'll take you live. We're going to do it live to London for the latest comments from the president that have been moving markets in early trading. See, you might come back. All right. It's Tuesday, December 3rd, 2019. We're doing it live. Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square.
We can give it more than that.
We are live. From the NASDAQ in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernan. Andrew is out today, but we've got Tom Farley filling in. He is the CEO of Farpoint Acquisition Group, former president of the NYSE, and of course, a CNBC contributor. And Tom, it's great to have you back.
Good morning.
Today.
Great to be here.
Let's talk about what we're seeing right now in the markets. Already, you're seeing that there is some pressure that's coming to this. Dow futures down almost triple digits on this news that Joe just mentioned. President Trump saying he doesn't care if this gets done now, or maybe it's better to wait till after the election. That is seeing a little bit of a pullback. Dow futures down by about 98 points right now. S&P futures are off by 10. The NASDAQ is down by 35. Big issue here is we've been waiting, thinking maybe a deal was coming by December 15th, because that's when the new deadline for additional tariffs is on. If there's no deal by then, I guess the huge question for the markets is, do those new tariffs come into effect?
The market's been punched in the mouth twice since we went on the air yesterday. We came on the air yesterday at this exact time, and I was talking about record highs, and everything looked great, and the futures were up almost a full percent. And there was the first China news yesterday that things weren't looking great for December 15th. And these further comments really imply that phase one is not nowhere, but if people are still thinking December 15th, it's hard to believe.
Yeah, it is hard to believe that. Yesterday, we did see a pullback in the markets. It was the worst day that you've seen for the markets in about 2 months, but you're still talking about a decline of less than 1%. Over that period of time, for October and November, the Dow was up by 4.2%. The S&P was up by 5.5%. So we'll see what happens with all of this today.
Yeah, and while the move yesterday, the absolute move day to day wasn't too significant, volatility spiked more dramatically. So that implies that today's move was not unexpected. We may see some bigger moves in the days ahead.
I guess we have the soundbite. Let's get to Willem, President Trump's China trade comments, moving the futures. Let's get to Willem, March in London. Willem.
Yeah, Joe, so the president arrived here late last night, stayed at the U.S. ambassador's residence, and this morning there he met with the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg. Ahead of their breakfast, he gave some public comments, including on China, saying he wants to wait until the deal is right. Take a listen.
The China trade deal is dependent on one thing. Do I want to make it? I have no deadline, no. In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China. But I'm not going to say that. I just think that. I just tell you.
So, we've had discussions over the last couple of months about a phase one or preliminary trade deal. Clearly, we're expecting tariffs to kick up on the 15th of December if that preliminary trade deal is not concluded. And based on what the president is saying this morning, it doesn't sound like he's in much of a rush, guys.
It's an old technique. Cicero. Yeah, I'm not going to, in some way, I'm not going to say it, but in some ways it might be, I'm not going to point out you know nothing, but in some way, right? You can say it without saying it, and that's what he just did, I think. I don't know. It's not that different than what he said all along, Willem, but we go back and forth. It was interesting, the take from the New York Times versus the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal just plays it straight. Trump to levy tariffs on Brazil, Argentina. The Times, they'd never editorialize on the front page. Trump's adding South Americans to his trade war. So no president, just adding, this clown in the White House, adding, but anyway, just different ways of saying the same thing. But I guess, how many continents do we have now? We got Asia, Europe. South America.
Not Australia yet.
Canada's part of North America. We took a few shots at Australia. We let them know.
Well, these people better get their act together. They want to trade with the superpower, okay?
I agree with them, though, in some ways.
It
is better
to wait till after the
election, because there is this question of, is somebody more China-friendly going to be in the White House?
Particularly if the Chinese are not being cooperative, which is what it sounded like for the last couple of weeks. If they have kind of taken more of a hardline stance and are not going to agree to anything, okay, if you're going to have a super skinny deal that basically says nothing other than we will not put more additional tariffs on you, then maybe it's better to wait.
Elizabeth Warren might be tougher. Joe, I don't know.
Not tougher. Not tougher. She's very, her rhetoric's very tough.
Very tough.
Not tougher.
How about Joe? Joe, the son still got that $1 billion from the sovereign fund. He may be nice to him. That's a lot of money.
What about Mike Bloomberg?
Mike Bloomberg said, President Xi's not a dictator. He's got a constituency he has to satisfy. Well, it's true, or else they have to go to a concentration camp if they don't. Then guess what?
Well, I think
bet we just got blacked out, right?
Probably a little while ago.
Yeah, probably a little while.
I would guess.
Especially now, yeah. Here we go.
Separately, though, Chinese state media said that the country would soon publish a list of unreliable entities that could lead to sanctions against U.S. companies. A tweet by the Global Times said that the list was being fast-tracked in response to a bill that was sponsored by Senator Marco Rubio requiring sanctions against Chinese officials who have been linked to alleged abuses of Muslims. Joining us right now to talk about the market response to the president's China trade comments is Alec Young. He's managing director of global markets research at FTSE Russell. And Alec, it's good to see you.
Yeah, great to be here.
What do you think if there is not a trade deal that happens, even a skinny deal that some people had been anticipating? What does that mean for the markets?
Well, I think the market run-up definitely has been predicated to a certain extent on at least some kind of a skinny deal, an ad product buy in exchange for perhaps some movement on intellectual property. When there was word that had entered into the talks, I know the market responded very favorably. Obviously, the December 15th tariffs, waiving those or delaying them, moving them out of implementation, I think is going to be expected.
If there's not a deal that's reached, the Chinese have now not only said that they don't want those December 15th tariffs to come on, but they would like the original tariffs to be removed as well.
I think there's obviously downside risks, especially in light of the weaker than expected manufacturing data yesterday. So if the positive inflection in global growth that people have been hoping for is a little more fragile than thought, obviously we're more sensitive to problems on the U.S.-China trade front.
Does that mean risk off? You would not put...
Well, I mean, I think it risk off to S&P 3000 maybe, but let's keep this in perspective. I think there's a tendency, frankly, in the financial press to overreact to the president's commentary. We've seen this movie like 57 times.
That's why let's not worry about the comments right now, but let's talk about the real things that might matter. We are approaching that December 15th deadline. What would matter to the market? What wouldn't?
Well, if those tariffs go into effect, that would be a negative. I think that potential is being priced in this sell-off as we speak.
A sell-off of under 100 points.
How negative for the Chinese economy?
Well, first off, let's remember that both sides have an incentive to do a deal, and that's the market calculus. The president does because of his reelection. The Chinese do because of the softening in their economy. So the market won't like it if the December 15th tariff go into place. It's selling off on that possibility, but that doesn't mean that we get a bear market. It doesn't mean that this rally's over. You have to take things from a measured perspective. I think there's a lot of gray, and there's a tendency to want to view this as a black and white issue.
So in terms of the run-up that we've seen in the markets, Dow up by, I think, 4.4% over the last couple of months, S&P up 5.5%. Those are some really strong moves. To this point, we'd kind of been talking about December being a place where you could see an additional sort of rally, and even a Santa Claus rally at the end of December. You think that's still on the...
I think a lot of it has to do with what you're talking about around the tariff for December 15th. Certainly the seasonality we all know is favorable. I think one of the risks though this year is that we've pulled a little bit from next year's performance, because until yesterday you could really ask yourself what good news hasn't really been priced in. You had a lot of complacency, a lot of optimism. So in a way this digestion is good. It resets expectations in a little bit more realistic territory. It does set us up for the Santa Claus rally.
I mean, you're talking about digestion. We're talking about a move of just over 1% when you look at yesterday's losses and combine the futures this morning.
I think we could see some follow through to 3,000 on the S&P, which would be about 150 points. So it might be a slightly 3 or 4% move at that point.
If that happened, though, you said that would be a good thing. You would tell people to go ahead and put money to work at that point.
Yeah, because I'm not ready to accept that the trade talks are going to completely collapse.
Yeah.
We've seen this 2 steps forward, 1 step back dynamic for a long time.
So even if December 15th deadline passes, the new tariffs go into effect, you feel okay because come January, February, or March,
it's all about what the market's priced in, and if the market's fallen 3-4%, I think the market will have priced that in, and then it'll be like, okay, what's the next step? If we get another major disappointment in the new year, I think the market may take a slightly more negative view. But right now, the core view among investors globally is that both sides have an incentive to get something done. They have more of an incentive to move forward than they do to see a re-escalation.
How do you like U.S. stocks versus international stocks?
I think at this point, you definitely want to be looking at rebalancing up the international exposure. Everyone knows how great the U.S. has done, but historically, when you see this kind of a spread between asset classes, it's when you start to see some mean reversion on the upside from the weaker asset class. So I think most people have exposure to international. It's gone down because of how much the U.S. has outperformed. I think rebalancing international up makes sense now. If international growth, we saw in the PMIs yesterday, the U.S. disappointed, but China and Europe actually beat a low bar. That's the kind of catalyst we need for the dollar rally to cool off, and a weaker dollar helps international.
Alec, thank you.
Thank you.
Other stuff happening. Farley, do you know why you slap a punitive duty on something? You know why you slap it? Why it's always a slap? Do you know why it's a slap?
Yes.
I'll tell you why it's a slap. You do.
Well, I just infer from the word that it's you're angry at somebody and there's
nope. When the stuff used to be coming in, they would actually slap the duty piece of paper.
Right there.
Well, not that. Yeah. What'd you say? Duty.
Bengals.
The Trump administration, right there, said it may slap. You could say levy, couldn't you?
You could.
Okay, but slap
is
so much. No, slap. They're slapping because these are punitive duties of up to 100% on $2.4 billion of imports of French champagne, among other things, handbags, cheese. Target France, champagne and cheese, right? And other products. The move is a response to France's new 3% digital services tax on companies with more than $27 million in French revenue. The U.S. Trade Rep's office says its investigation found that the French tax was unusually burdensome for U.S. companies, including Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon. Here's President Trump speaking about 2 hours ago at the NATO summit in London.
Emmanuel had an idea, let's tax those companies. Well, they're American companies. I'm not going to let people take advantage of American companies, because if anyone's going to take advantage of the American companies, it's going to be us. It's not going to be France.
Shares of several French luxury goods stocks fell on the news. He's very blunt.
Well, he even said he doesn't like a lot of these companies. Right. He's talking about protecting Amazon and others, but he even said while he was doing it, I don't even like some of these companies.
Like Apple. I think he kind of likes Facebook.
You said champagne, but not that. I didn't hear you say wine. No Burgundy.
I didn't see that. No, is that your thing?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
It's delicious. But there were already tariffs
that had been
on
that had been
wine.
slapped.
I wonder if there's some additional slapping going on.
I drink that once in a while. I mean, you know my life now. Finger up, Chardonnay.
You're mostly white. I was going to say mostly white wine.
It's pathetic. Anyway, that's where I am. Beer, it's just too much volume.
This will be interesting because it's a big export market.
Yeah.
for France.
Yeah. So
I wonder if they might reconsider.
You're the big
digital tech.
You're like the Grasso Fat Cat NYSE guy. So you got like the $800 red wine. Is that your thing?
No, I'm a simpleton. I'm from Bowie, Maryland.
I know
Son of a government.
You were the president. You don't go. Wait a second. You don't go to one of these.
Yeah, my mother was
a
Catholic nun for 5 years. She left the night before her final vows. She lived in a cloistered
Wait a
convent.
second.
Because she met your dad?
Ostensibly, no. As the story goes, they met after she left the convent.
Oh, that sounds like,
age 18
that sounds like a little revisionist history there, perhaps. Your dad wasn't a priest.
My father had just lost his leg fighting in Vietnam. He was recovering in a hospital. She leaves the convent. She's at home in a spare bedroom. She had lost all her friends, and my grandmother set the two up. And
you want to lay down on a couch
and they fell in love, and they got
great story.
They got married.
Well, while I can't believe you're letting us know all this. It's really nice. I had no idea.
So no, I wasn't drinking.
All right, but you were. Yeah, you were. You're the NYSE president. You're going to those all those leather chairs with the things along the side. Yeah, you were.
No.
My mother was a nun for a while.
Is that right?
No.
I was adopted, so I was in an orphanage where basically the nuns were my.
Okay. So we learned schooled from.
And my uncle was a priest, but anyway, my
uncle as well.
Your uncle was a priest too?
Yeah, Thomas Wells. My name's Thomas Wells Farley.
Boy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, good.
I like this share.
This is really. But I don't know why I'm getting a little teary, but we're really opening up here. Next time we're going to couch out here for you. You're okay with all this? I mean,
what's the next block?
I'll take it to
I think it's
I
think it's the early years. What about the early Farley years? How was kindergarten? Everything okay? Yeah? Okay, so we don't need to go over any.
I like knowing this story. When we come back, early forecast for Cyber Monday show Americans likely spent a record amount of money online. We'll tell you which companies won big right after this. And later, much more on President Trump's trade comments that are moving the futures this morning. Triple-digit decline for the futures right now, Dow down by 101. In the next hour, China expert Jim McGregor will join us. Squawk Box will be right back.
This CNBC program is...
This winter, there's no place like Wicked, the award-winning West End musical. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz and how one came to be called good and the other wicked. Wicked at London's Apollo Victoria Theatre. Extra shows added for Christmas.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
I used to be a bit of a rubbish sleeper. I'd toss and turn all night, and somehow I could never find the comfy bit of the mattress. It was a proper nightmare. That's what brought me here, testing mattresses in the Which Test Lab. We use a custom-made barrel rolling machine to simulate a decade's worth of use. And the mattresses that perform best are the only ones we recommend for your bedroom.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in-store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required.
Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Welcome back, everybody. Cyber Monday sales are expected to have hit a record $9.2 billion. That's up nearly 17% from a year ago. That's according to new data from Adobe Analytics. Courtney Reagan joins us right now. She's got more on that front. And Courtney, you're back. It's good to see you.
I'm back. Here we are. Cyber Monday is now officially behind us, but really just a couple hours ago, Becky. And like you pointed out, that number actually a bit below the initial expectations for Cyber Monday for those four results, but still a record. As expected, those peak hours were pretty late, around 11 p.m. Eastern Time. A third of the sales were done on mobile devices on Cyber Monday. So some of the top sellers include Frozen 2 toys, LOL Surprise Dolls, Nerf products, Madden 20, Nintendo Switch, Jedi Fallen Order, Samsung TVs, Fire TV, AirPods, and air fryers. Got to figure out how to use one of those. Cyber Monday was once again Amazon's biggest ever day worldwide. That seems to be the stat they give us every year. This time they did tell us more than 25 million items were ordered on Black Friday and Cyber Monday combined. The 2 days, the biggest ever for toys on Amazon too. Amazon says Cyber Monday was the biggest day ever for fashion on the site. We know apparel has been a big push for the retailer. Amazon sold millions more devices this year. Bestsellers again include the Echo Dot and that Fire TV stick. Interesting though, Adobe also said on Black Friday states that recorded more than 2 inches of snow saw a 7% increase in online sales. And I think that's interesting because when I've asked about whether snow helps online sales in the past, at least on non-holiday shopping days anyway, there really hasn't been a discernible difference. But I guess if it's Black Friday and you're going to shop anyways and it's snowing, then you will move online. But typically that doesn't happen.
I went to the mall yesterday to actually buy things because I figured it'd be a great day. It was snowing. Nobody was there.
Yeah.
It was the easiest way to move around. It's probably the easiest it's going to be for the rest of the holidays.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, retailers want it cold, but they want it dry. They don't want it raining, they don't want it slushy, and they don't really want snow because it does deter people from going out. But we haven't always seen those sales translate online, interestingly enough. I've looked into that. When you have big snow days in New York, do then people shift online? And it hasn't happened.
Sometimes they just lose the sales.
Exactly, they just lose the sales. But it did seem to happen, at least on Black Friday.
Yesterday we were talking to a couple of different people about it. Should we anticipate, like I'm kind of feeling that I've been conditioned to think I'm going to get these deals all the way through the rest of the holiday season. Is that right, or did I miss my opportunity?
You know, I think every retailer gives themselves a little bit of leeway, and we've asked a lot of them about that going into this fourth quarter and where their inventory levels are, and really
pretty high, right?
how much room they've given themselves sort of in their earnings guidance to discount those prices to respond to the competitive atmosphere. And almost all the retailers say, look, we always give ourselves a little bit of room. But I actually think the inventories are looking better this year than in years past. And remember, we have a shortened season. So
I know, that's why I feel like they'll get desperate. They're going to have to unload this stuff at some
point.
They
might, but then again, I only have 3 gifts and it's December 3rd. So I also feel kind of crunched. I feel nervous about waiting, I guess is my way of looking
Joe
at it.
has no idea what you're talking about. He never buys a single present. Right, that's a lot for him.
I've thought about, at some point, thinking about the gifts. That's good. Great.
I'm glad Santa does all that work for you.
Santa does a lot of work. She does. That the consumer we refer to as she a lot now, and Santa I really
So
think
Santa also
we should refer
really
to
Mrs.
as.
Claus
It's not really
powering
Mrs.
Santa.
Claus. I think that's
everybody else's house.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
I need one of those.
Courtney, thanks.
Yeah, right.
Courtney.
What war?
Vietnam. Towards the tail end of Vietnam.
Yeah. See, my dad froze his feet in a foxhole in Belgium in the Battle of the Bulge. He had to come home from that. And it didn't lose him, but had tingly feet the rest of it. So you're Vietnam, that figures, right? Yeah.
I grew up in a very lucky
What happened to us?
Lucky time.
I was trying to think of the worst thing that happened to me in my,
You bought that car?
I had to pay my own car payment.
No, you know what it is?
My dad made me pay my own, car payment.
We got to reap the benefits that
we did of the greatest generation, and
afforded us.
We need to think about that more. Let's talk. Let's go to break and let's talk about this. Coming up, OPEC meeting this week at a crucial time for the Aramco IPO. And for American energy producers, we'll get you ready for the meeting next. And then later, we're going to talk to China expert Jim McGregor about President Trump's new trade comments that are moving the market. Squawk Box will be right back.
I've told a million lies, but now I tell a single truth. There's you in everything I do. Now remember when I told you that's the last you'll see of me. Remember when I broke you down to tears. I know I took the path that you would never want for me.
This CNBC program is sponsored by Capgemini.
There's a growing threat from Moscow Center, and Britain's intelligence service think they found the man for the job.
The natural-born agent runner is his own man. He may take his orders from London, but in the field, he is the master of his fate and the fate of his agents.
A powerful portrait of our times, told with unflagging tension by one of the greatest novelists of our age, John le Carré's Agent Running in the Field. Available now at Waterstones.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We heart in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
The very thought of you.
Michael Bublé. See him performing in the most picturesque and beautiful outdoor settings across the UK in July and August with Priority. If you're on O2, get Priority tickets up to 48 hours before general release. From tomorrow, search for Priority. Michael Bublé, live across the UK in July and August. Unforgettable live music experiences with O2. O2, breathe it all in. Terms apply.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
Sometimes in business, you have to take risks, but trading across borders and currencies shouldn't be one of them. With Western Union Business Solutions, we can help you manage the risk of doing business internationally. Our valuable experience, expert knowledge, and extensive global network makes us the ideal trusted partner for your business. And with our customer-focused support team, you'll receive a dedicated solution and personalized service. Visit westernunionbusiness.com. Western Union Business Solutions, a global financial network you can trust.
Ah, Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
If you're on the way to work, why not go to Boots.com where you'll find thousands of fantastic gifts to choose from. Like Pixie to Fitbit. If you order from Boots.com, you can collect from a Boots of your choice. Such as Boots in London White City Shopping Centre. What better way to shop when it's cloudy and grey like today? So gift like you get them at the fantastical choice of thousands of gifts to order and collect boutique. Charges may apply. See Boots.com for details.
Other sister. We're just days away from the most interesting OPEC meeting in years, it says here. It comes as the Saudi Aramco IPO prices. The new Saudi energy minister is taking over, and U.S. oil producers are at a dangerous crossroads. Here's Brian Sullivan with a preview.
OPEC meets on Thursday in Vienna, Austria, and this meeting may be one of the most important in years for three big reasons. It's the first meeting with Saudi Arabia's new energy minister, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, one of the sons of the king and half-brother to the crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. Replacing the former Saudi energy minister with a member of the royal family shows just how important OPEC's choices have become. Equally important to the kingdom, the long-awaited IPO of Saudi Aramco. That offering also prices on Thursday, the day the OPEC meeting begins. Its performance should add another layer of drama to the meeting. And finally, can OPEC move prices higher? Production cuts were extended at the July meeting, but oil hasn't budged. It's been stuck in the mid-50s. That's bad news for U.S. oil producers and their investors, who have all but given up on energy stocks, spooked by heavy debt loads and a struggle to remain profitable at current prices. The biggest oil-related ETF is down 25% since that July meeting, with other stocks down much more. There are very real concerns about a flood of oil-related bankruptcies next year if oil prices don't move higher. Many companies simply can't make any money at current prices. So the irony, guys, is that, listen, OPEC probably wants prices to move higher, but if they do succeed in doing that, then they might keep the U.S. shale boom going, because with every dollar that goes up, you get a little more free cash flow, and you keep some of these struggling U.S. companies alive. So ironically, OPEC, which I think it's fair to say for years has been a four-letter word for the U.S. oil and gas industry, may be the only group that has the power to save the U.S. oil and gas industry from itself, because as you guys know, there are so many companies that are simply not profitable. I'm going to give you a statistic. I just ran the numbers this morning. There's 78 U.S. oil drilling and services companies that are publicly listed. The combined market cap of all 78 is $1.3 trillion. Aramco's IPO is likely to bring a valuation of $1.6 trillion. Aramco is worth more than all 78 U.S. oil drilling and services companies.
Brian, you think that's a fair valuation for
On
each
what
of them?
side? On what
I was going to say
side?
for each of them, or do you think Aramco is overvalued, or do you think the U.S. companies are undervalued? How do you think that plays out?
Well, I think, number one, on the U.S. side, it's all debt. You got to remember, I mean, the oil story, you may not care about OPEC. You may hate fossil fuels. You may say, who cares about these companies? But here's the reality. You probably care about the overall markets, or at least the economy. You got millions of people and hundreds of billions of dollars in debt in the oil and gas industry. So at the minimum, you talk about that. Are they undervalued? Well, the debt is weighing on the market cap. So if you eliminate the debt, you might raise it up. But nobody's saying anything about eliminating the debt yet. On the other side, the Aramco IPO, sure. There are some people that suggest that the valuation may be too high. Aramco could probably make the case that perhaps the valuation is too low. Remember, they wanted $2 trillion, so maybe $1.6 trillion sounds good. You got that pricing literally on the same day of the OPEC meeting with the new energy minister, who is also one of the sons of the king. I think that all shapes up for a pretty important meeting.
Brian, the Saudi IPO looks like an IPO in name only, in the sense that it's just a really tiny portion. A lot of arm twist. I think it's ending up about 0.5%. I think
0.5% of the companies float. Exactly,
yeah,
Tom.
I mean, that's not an IPO. Is on the London Stock Exchange, the minimum floats 5%, for example. But typically, companies float 10% to 20%. So it's not going to have flow. There's a lot of arm twisting to buy the stock. I'm not sure. It really, to me, just looks like a large private deal. I mean, do you think this has any impact on the market over the next couple of days, one way or the other, on the energy market?
No. In a word, but I will say this. Remember that IPO is pricing on the Tadawul, the local Saudi Arabian exchange. I think the key here, Thomas, listen, you know a lot better than I do, just getting the IPOs going, right? This has been a 2-year process. Yes, the float is minuscule, but getting it out there, having even a sliver of that equity trade, even domestically in Saudi Arabia, I think is sort of a symbolic point for getting the world's largest company. Whatever you think about the valuation, the company is the world's biggest in terms of, cash flow and all these different metrics. Getting it simply going to the market, I think, is a big first step.
Brian, thank you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
When we come back, it is getting more expensive for companies to use corporate jets thanks to some tax law changes. But investors are being kept in the dark. We've got that story next. Right now, though, as we head to a break, let's take a look at yesterday's S&P 500 winners and losers.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10 gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Your old car, your loyal friend, so many memories. It's impossible to leave their side.
Until now, get £5,000 off a selected brand new Citroën when you trade in your old car.
Alors, out with the old, in with the new. Hello Citroën, hello comfort.
The Citroën Swappage. Trade in your old car for a brand new Citroën, including the award-winning SUV range.
Citroën.
Discount on OTR price of selected Citroëns excluding C1. Registered by the 31st of December when trading in a qualifying vehicle. Not in conjunction with other offers. Search Citroën Swappage for full T's and C's.
Christmas isn't just about the turkey, you know. At Asda, we've a whole range of delicious joints to bring the family together. Like our Butcher's Selection pork loin at just £3.97 per kilo. And our Butcher's Selection beef joint at £4.97 per kilo. So, who's on carving duty? Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores subject to availability.
Why do some leaders inspire action when others don't?
The best leaders are actually the best followers because they don't see themselves as the thing to be followed. They actually see themselves as following a cause bigger than themselves.
I'm Guy Raz. How leaders inspire movements for change. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under Events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins. It's College Football Conference Championship Weekend, and TuneIn is your home to hear all the champions crowned. This Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the SEC Championship. The undefeated LSU Tigers, led by the Heisman frontrunner quarterback Joe Burrow, look to cap their perfect regular season. However, it won't be easy as their opponent, the Georgia Bulldogs, will be hungry to pull off the upset and earn their ticket to the college football playoff. Catch all the action on TuneIn. Search college football to find your game.
Welcome back. U.S. equity futures swinging from positive territory to negative territory this morning after President Trump said that there isn't a timeline for the China trade negotiations. He said that if it doesn't happen until after the election, maybe that's for the best. We're going to speak with China expert Jim McGregor in just a few minutes. He'll be live from Beijing. We'll get his take on it. But you can see right now, Dow futures down by about 81 points. S&P futures off by 7.5. The NASDAQ down by 28.
More CEOs are using corporate jets for personal trips on the company tab and keeping investors in the dark. According to Reuters, the median cost of the private flights has climbed from roughly $96,000 to $107,000. With the increase in cost comes higher taxes because of changes that the IRS made to limit the number of deductions a company can claim on personal aircraft use. Companies can typically deduct expenses ranging from pilot salaries to aircraft depreciation when planes are used for business purposes, but not when used for personal trips. Even more, because the SEC doesn't require companies to disclose lost deductions, investors may not know the true costs of corporate jet use. CEOs, they have a lot of reasons. They could visit a lot of different places that might not be served, and they don't. I understand the rationale. The personal use, if they pay for it themselves or whatever, I can understand that as well.
If they pay for it themselves.
If they pay for it themselves.
Right.
All right, coming up, doing business in, what was the, never mind, I'm not going to go there.
Thank you.
What was the what?
I don't know, New York Stock Exchange. Remember Grasso? I like to throw him in the Grasso. I liked Dick Grasso.
The rules are very stringent.
Dick Grasso.
No,
Ken Langone. I like Dick Grasso.
Dick was a mentor to me.
He was promised, and that he did deferred compensation for over years.
I know. I like it. I got no problem with it. And Langone makes a great case of it. I'm just trying to paint you with the same fat cat brush, and you're not allowing it. By the time you got there, it was owned by
Intercontinental Shipping.
Yeah.
And the rules around private jet use are very stringent. Now, I was surprised to see.
You were pissed.
See the story. That,
right.
No, but personal
I thought
use,
you meant the New York Stock
Personal
Exchange.
use, the days of, I'm going to use the jet for.
happen.
I mean, it doesn't. You get ousted by, Dan Loeb if Right. You're using the jet for personal use, not properly disclosed.
Well, he'll fly in his personal jet to see you, to tell you to stop flying. Anyway, doing business in China ahead of the tariff scheduled later this month. We're going to talk about President Trump's comments on China. I think Bloomberg flies to all the climate summit meetings in his G650.
Small sugar.
Yeah.
I've always loved Christmas, a time for sharing gifts and laughter, and photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Chris Young performed at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade and then shot out of town so fast that he was able to help cook and eat turkey with his family that night. There's 2 separate photos, one of him on the parade float and then another picture of him wearing oven mitts and holding the cooked turkey. To hear more music from Chris Young, search Country Roads on TuneIn.
Raised on country.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards at the goal line. It's intercepted.
Listen live as the action unfolds, or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Haskell gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. TMZ claims Fergie and Josh Duhamel have finalized their divorce and agreed that neither will pay child support. They have agreed to share joint legal and physical custody of their son. Meanwhile, Justin Bieber's wife, Hailey, is not pregnant. She posted, "The internet is funny. No, I'm not pregnant. I just really love food." To hear music from Justin Bieber and Fergie, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Well, the futures had been up, and President Trump made some comments, which sent the futures into the red about 90 minutes ago. We're down about 79 points. The president's at the NATO summit, and here are the comments that caused it.
The China trade deal is dependent on one thing. Do I want to make it? I have no deadline, no. In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China. But I'm not going to say that. I just think that. I just tell you.
He's not going to say it. He just thinks it. He does. There are times when he will say things that he's thinking, and sometimes I think maybe he doesn't realize that he's saying something he's thinking.
You do the same thing.
I do.
You do.
All right.
I'm not going to say.
Exactly. Join us now to discuss the negotiation. You have to do that. Then you can say, well, I never said it.
Right.
And the climate in China. Jim McGregor, APCO Worldwide, Greater China Chairman. And I was thinking about what to actually put on your plate James, and there's 7 or 8 things. I think the president just signed this bill. They didn't like that. I don't think very much. I don't know where the skinny phase 1 negotiations stand. I don't know whether you do in terms of whether there's really anything on IP or any of the the more important things we're trying to accomplish. Are those even in the skinny deal? Where are we right now at this point in time? And I will point out it's December and there's an election in less than a year.
Well, if you talk to the American side in Beijing here, it doesn't look like any of the real serious stuff is in any kind of a phase 1 deal. Phase 1 is, it's not going to work on reciprocity. It's not going to work on forced tech transfer and the technology issues. It's going to be more of, China buying American products, the U.S. removing some of the tariffs, China making some concessions maybe on intellectual property. But it's not going to go very deep, and China's very chill about this right now. I don't feel a lot of pressure to have a deal quickly. I've been around a bunch of senior retired government officials the last couple of weeks through a couple of events, and they're saying things like this was inevitable. We knew this would happen sometime. We might as well have it now. There's talk that the next 5-year plan that is underway is going to be focused quite a bit on decoupling and reducing their dependence on the U.S.
Jim, what was inevitable? The idea that these two nations would come to a head?
Yes. That the differences between the two systems. I think it was even the former Commerce Minister said that that eventually that the U.S. could tolerate the differences between our system and the U.S. system when we were small, but now that our economy is so big and powerful that the U.S. can't tolerate the differences. And that's what this is all about. How do we deal with the differences in the system? How do we have a different interface? Because right now China gets a lot of advantages. For example, I was talking to a Swedish diplomat today who said that there's a tunnel connected to a subway in Stockholm that the bidders came in, and a Chinese bidder came in with a 70% discount to the next lowest bidder. And because it's an open, fair bidding system, they won the contract. And that can go on all over the world because of the subsidies and the differences having a state-owned system. So there's a lot to work out, and China seems quite relaxed about it. Long Yong-tu, the Chinese official who actually negotiated China getting into WTO with Barshevsky, he said the way Huawei is handling this is giving all of China great confidence. That was quite interesting.
Because
always losing a lot.
When you were talking earlier about, they're ready for some decoupling, and we knew it was only a matter of time to get to this point, you could have been talking about the U.S. position. I was trying to, since you're in China, you weren't, but it's amazing all the similarities. And I think there's times, you use the word chill, I think there's times where our people over here think that we're in the driver's seat and that we can wait out China. It sounds like they think they can wait us out. So none of this sounds that great, Jim.
Yeah, I'm not a stock picker, but the market is kind of funny how it just, kind of goes up and down on these hints that something might happen. The truth of the matter is the U.S. and China are facing a very different future, and we don't know what it looks like yet. But the Europeans and others are, they have to do their own deals. This is not two countries.
So, Jim, you don't think that the threat of these additional tariffs on December 15th is really much of a threat at all to China?
It can be a threat, but remember, their system has a lot of controls that we don't. Their 4 big banks are basically the finance ministry. They can do a lot. In fact, they just took $150 billion in special bonds for localities and front-loaded them from 2020 to 2019 to get $150 billion more in infrastructure going. They got a lot of things they can play with here, and they've got the population because they control the propaganda and the information. They got people pretty much geared up here that this is China's time. We've got to get over this. This is the world trying to keep us down. And actually, I've had friends of mine, U.S. educated, everybody from U.S. educated to, a driver for DD and Uber, a 60-year-old man the other day telling me, you're American. You guys had your time. This is now our time, and we are going to surpass America, and that's the way it is. I mean, that attitude is pretty strong here.
Well, come home once in a while, Jim. I'm worried about you.
Well, I'm fact-based, Joe. I'm fact-based. I'm not based on an ideology. I'm telling you what I see.
I know. I'm just, you've heard of the Stockholm Syndrome. I just don't want, Beijing Syndrome taking over McGregor. We still got a pretty nice place over here. Beautiful, and it's not so nice. Don't come now. Anyway, thanks, Jim. We'll check back with you soon. Beijing,
all right,
Jim.
Joe.
All right, when we return, a college student in California is suing TikTok. We will tell you the stakes for the Chinese-owned social media giant right after this. So basically,
our bank isn't tech enough.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in-store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you... Anytime, anywhere. All season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown.
Search NFL today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Don't want to miss a second of your NFL team's next matchup? Let TuneIn remind you. Just make sure notifications are enabled on your phone and search for your team profile on the TuneIn app. Then, find the game you want under events and tap Notify Me. We'll send you an alert as soon as live coverage begins.
On this week's On the Media, seeking answers to our domestic troubles, we look east to Poland, a country wrestling with disinformation, xenophobia, and a battle over its own story.
The assumption that we had finished with those arguments and that we'd all learned the lessons of the Second World War was wrong.
Tune in for this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Move, and a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Yeah?
Welcome back, everybody. A California college student has accused video sharing app TikTok of transferring private user data to servers in China, despite the company's assurances that it does not store personal data there. TikTok is owned by Beijing ByteDance Technology, but says that it operates entirely outside of China. The company is already facing a U.S. government probe about data storage and possible censorship of politically sensitive content. Joining us right now to talk more about it is Sarah Fisher. She's Axios media reporter. Also, David McCabe, who's tech policy reporter at the New York Times. What do you think about this? David, we'll start with you. Is this a big deal, and what does this mean for the future of TikTok?
I think it's a big deal because it points to the potential for consumer concerns around TikTok. So far, a lot of the concerns around TikTok have come from governmental actors. You referred to the CFIUS review of the acquisition that led to the product. That, of course, is a big deal. It was spurred, it came at least after congressional concerns were raised. But we're also seeing consumers raise concern about the censorship issues you mentioned, and now about the privacy issues through this class action lawsuit. What exactly happened with the suit, I think, remains to be seen, but certainly the problems have added up for TikTok, and I think it's one thing for governments to be concerned. It's another for consumers who have made this a hugely successful social product to express that concern as well.
This is one consumer who's expressing this, Sarah,
Yeah.
but I think if you look at the numbers of teenagers who are using this probably doesn't even hit their radar screen. So will this have an impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
I'm sorry for Sarah.
Oh.
It probably won't have an impact on the mass amount of users right now, especially because they're so young. They're not thinking about privacy. They're not thinking about their digital rights. What I think is interesting about this lawsuit is that we learned some new stuff. I mean, the girl alleges that TikTok was creating biometric data about her, that TikTok was creating a profile about her, even though she never even uploaded photos. Those are allegations I've never heard before with TikTok. So
they don't back up the allegations, in at least for now. I haven't seen proof of that. Have you?
I haven't seen any proof of that, but the fact that they're brand new allegations is meaningful. But to your original point, I don't think that the kids are going to care about this. I think this is a legal headache and a regulatory headache for TikTok.
Although, David, I guess that gets back to the point of, will this be something that the regulators then take and run with, and what kind of headaches could that create for them down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that the lawmakers in particular on Capitol Hill who are concerned about Chinese tech companies, whether it's Huawei, whether it's TikTok, are willing to basically grab onto any concerns and amplify them and build their case around them, regardless of whether or not, the technical specifications are there to back it up at the moment, or at least are public. And so I think we'll probably see that happen here.
Sarah, I wonder if it's
We have been closely following what's taking place with the phase one trade deal between
the types of things kids could put on TikTok. And if you take a long enough view, ultimately these things could be used for blackmail purposes or extortion purposes. I don't want to be alarmist, but if somehow this is connected to the Chinese kind of superstructure, isn't that a concern?
It's a huge concern, and you should be alarmist. I mean, we saw back when Snapchat was first introduced, there was a lot of issues with kids sending naked pictures of themselves, and then there being allegations of child pornography. So this is something that happens all the time. But the issue that you're addressing, could another state hold these photos and then sometime down the line, if someone runs for office, withdraw them? Yeah, absolutely. And that's why lawmakers want to get to the bottom of this early before TikTok continues to grow its footprint here in the United States.
All right, let's switch subjects. President Trump's reelection campaign says that it's going to be barring Bloomberg News journalists from attending the president's rallies and political events. It's a response to the news organization's decision to cease investigating Democratic candidates as owner Michael Bloomberg campaigns for the Democratic nomination. President Trump weighed in on Twitter on this and didn't mince any words. He wrote, "Mini Mike Bloomberg has instructed his third-rate news organization not to investigate him or any Democrat to President Trump only. The failing New York Times thinks that is okay because their hatred bias is so great they can't even see straight. It's not okay." Sarah, what do you think?
Well, this is a huge problem, one, for Bloomberg News. I mean, we knew that Michael Bloomberg stepping into the race was going to conflate their editorial responsibility a little bit, call it into question. Now it's become a national spat with the president, and quite frankly, it's going to continue to carry on unless they can address this. One of the things you keep hearing is that there are other billionaires that have no problem with their newsrooms covering them, like Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post. And we're seeing now that this policy, a longstanding policy now adapted for the campaign, is going to really come back and hurt the newsroom unless it can continue to defend itself from these types of attacks.
David, I have a lot of respect for Michael Bloomberg, great mayor, perhaps even greater business person. I was on the other side of that Bloomberg press apparatus. Every article that came out about ICE, a competitor to Bloomberg, seemed to have a negative slant, negative headline. Do you see anything inappropriate with the president drawing a line with Bloomberg News here?
Well, I think more broadly, it's really a part of a trend where the president and the administration have been willing to push back on news organizations and push back, frankly, on channels of information and brand them as biased. We've seen this with the social media platforms as well. So I think the bigger picture here is less about one news organization than about how the president and his administration, his campaign, brand either the world of media or the world of sort of channels.
So you can't even comment on this act. You're just back to just Trump hates all the. You can't find it in yourself to say this might not be. Even Sarah had no problem. You can't find it in yourself to say maybe this isn't such a great idea to not cover Bloomberg and Democrats, but to investigate Trump. You can't even bring yourself to say that because you're at the New York Times. Seriously.
Well, regardless of where I work, I think the bigger picture here is really interesting.
Bigger picture. Back to the bigger picture. Okay, never mind. I don't expect you to say it. But how about
the one example where the news organization is actually named after his competitor?
Well, Trump bashes the press a lot.
I think we are out of time in the hour. David, Sarah, thank you both for being here.
All right, coming up, futures tumbling this morning after there's no problem with the mainstream media. The president said the trade deal with China might wait until after the presidential election. Futures off the lows at the moment, but still in the red. We'll bring you full coverage next.
It's a madhouse. They buy things, and I'm wondering, where did this even come from?
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like for reals. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Breaking news this morning, President Trump says it might be better to wait until after the 2020 election for a China trade deal. Futures lower on the comments.
Apple unveiling its best apps for 2019. What should be on your device? A rundown of the winners coming up.
And McDonald's throwing its chicken sandwich into the sandwich war ring. What this could mean for the company and its competitors. The second hour of Squawk Box begins right now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernan and Tom Farley, who is in for Andrew this week. Tom, of course, is the CEO of Farpoint Acquisition Group. He's the former president of the NYSE, and he's a CNBC contributor, and we're glad to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks
Good
for
to have
having
you
me, Becky.
Joe.
All right, breaking news this morning, markets lower after comments by President Trump that it might be better in certain ways, I think he said, to wait until after the 2020 election to strike a deal with China. The futures at this hour down about 84 points. We were looking at a good day yesterday morning, too. Farley, remember?
It was up.
Things turned around.
Yeah, S&P was up 13
down,
when we first looked at it, right at 6.
So we lost yesterday, a couple hundred and change, and then down another 84 today. Eamon Javers joins us from Washington. I thought you might be across the pond.
Yeah, I thought I might be too, but I'm here in Washington this morning, Joe, and the president is in London, as you say, where he made those comments. The president talking to reporters there and suggesting that there might not be a trade deal at all this year. Here's what he said.
The China trade deal is dependent on one thing. Do I want to make it? I have no deadline, no. In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China. But I'm not going to say that. I just think that. I just tell you.
So the president saying in some ways he thinks it might be better to wait until after the election in November of 2020 for a China trade deal. He suggested in the past, Joe, that he's frustrated with the Chinese. He thinks they are slow walking the deal to get to after the election. Now the president's saying he also may want to wait until after the election. You know, I asked the president yesterday about all of this and whether or not signing that Hong Kong bill was making it more difficult to get to a trade deal with the Chinese. The president said it doesn't make it any better, but we'll see what happens. You know, I also asked Kellyanne Conway, the president's advisor at the White House yesterday, if the president had made a mistake by announcing the so-called Phase 1 deal back in October when he did and announced it was all but complete and simply needed to be finalized and papered, as they say. Kellyanne Conway said no, the president didn't make a mistake in doing that, and that was the right way to proceed with this. And she said that he didn't put himself in a bad negotiating position by announcing that the deal was all but complete before it was actually inked on paper. The president said it back in October there would be a signing ceremony with himself and President Xi Jinping. Not clear now when necessarily that would happen, and also not clear whether the president's comments here reflect some underlying breakdown in the trade talks themselves, or just an indication that he's not sure where this is going to land and wants to hold out the possibility to the American people that it might not happen soon, guys.
Eamon, it's December 3rd today. We are just 12 days away from that December 15th deadline. What do you hear, what do you think will happen when we get to December 15th? Will those additional tariffs actually get put on?
I mean, watch this space, right? I mean, we don't know. You can imagine that if the president is frustrated, that he might go forward with those tariffs, but all of the political incentives are the other way. That last tranche of tariffs is a tranche that will hit a lot of consumer goods and could have some political ramifications. There are advisors around the president who are suggesting that he better get a deal of some kind before November 2020 and before this election cycle really heats up. So there's some question about the timing. Would he announce some suspension of that, or would he simply announce he's not going forward with that? We just don't know. Politically, that would be his incentive, but the president takes these things personally as well as politically. And then, of course, he has said that what he's looking for here is a total rearrangement of the trade relationship between the United States and China, and that, he has said, is more important to him than the politics of it.
Yeah, we just heard the same thing from one of our guys guests based in China. Said China's over there talking about decoupling, Eamon. Like they're ready to decouple too. It's just like a Cold War that both sides seem to be
uncoupling.
Yeah, it's conscious uncoupling. Yeah, conscious. I love that, don't you? That guy's
we're all self-partnering now.
Right, it's self-partnering. Yeah,
you maybe.
That sounds dirty. I'm not sure what that means. Did I congratulate you on the Panthers win? Are you a Redskins fan or not?
No.
Oh,
I'm from Philly, man. Eagles. Right. Eagles are having a tough year.
God, that was horrible. Oh man!
But we did win the Super Bowl once in my lifetime. So
what a backhanded way to bring up that loss. I'm sorry. I really did not try to do that to you. That was hideous.
No, thanks.
For once, he didn't.
Yeah. A lot of things happened on Sunday that will never happen again. I think the Bengals. Anyway, thanks, Eamon.
You must have had a better weekend than I did.
Told you that.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive.
What is that on 500? What is that on 500?
20%.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Months of toil.
And it's not even a year yet. Annualized, that's like a 40% gain. So you might just want to pay attention to what I do once in a while. Okay.
Let's bring in a few voices to talk about everything that's been happening with China. Steve Leisman is here. Also, CNBC contributor Michelle Caruso-Cabrera and Marty Musi, who's the CEO of Paychex.
In studio.
Also in studio with us as well.
Wow.
Like the best weather to be here.
Yeah.
Michelle, you've been following international politics for a very long time. How would you read it at this point? What do you think's happening?
I've long been convinced that you actually don't get a deal until after the election. And now I'm getting more convinced that maybe you never have a deal even after the election. I'm not convinced that the politics were ever in favor of Trump getting a deal done before the election. There's a lot of consensus thinking out there that this would be a big win, but I'm not so sure that saying he's got to deal with China actually helps him politically. I mean, the Democrats are just as hard on China as he is at this point when you look at them on the trail.
Right.
So, and then the politics in China for a long time under Xi Jinping, your guest that you had on live from Beijing, his anecdotal evidence about talking to people on the street who say, the United States is treating us, trying to keep us down, etc. The internal politics there don't suggest that there should be a deal. So I'm not convinced. And with the stock market doing what it's doing, the economy not faltering, President Trump feels he's got ammunition to keep the situation exactly as it is.
Yeah, Steve, earlier when we spoke with Jim McGregor, who is in Beijing on this, he brought up the point that when he talks to people in government, people in some of these negotiating positions, it does not seem...
Even Uber drivers.
Even Uber drivers. There's not like a real sense of urgency on the side of the Chinese to get something done. So what would happen to the economy if these additional tariffs come on?
Not good things. I mean, there's not anything you can see that's been positive as a result of these tariffs that are out there. In general, fourth quarter growth running about 1.5%. You did 2% the prior quarter. Most economists feel as if you've taken away the benefits of the tax cuts. You've seen CEO confidence decline. You've seen political uncertainty rise. President Trump had the ability, I think, and initially was the president for business. And I think he's sort of undermining that in a big way, in the sense that some of the uncertainty that's out there has made business investment decline quite sharply. He had a good run of manufacturing jobs, manufacturing job growth. That's come off. A lot of the things that the president wants to happen and actually took steps to make happen have been undermined by this trade war. And I just want to agree with Michelle here. I wrote a piece back in April of 2019 that said, brace for forever trade wars. Mm-hmm. He's called himself the tariff man. He's advised by a man who is a proponent of tariffs as a way to fix
Peter
Navarro, things that are wrong with this country. And I just think that if you look at Jim Bullard, he's got a framework for thinking about trade, which is that the Fed should not be banking on trade wars going away. He sees it as a part of the landscape for a while, and that's why he believes in lower rates.
Marty, why don't we talk about what this means from the jobs perspective? To this point, jobs have been doing incredibly well. You do see this as a situation where it's a lot easier to get hired. Mm-hmm. But if business confidence is hampered by this, what will that mean down the road? Is this a concern for you, or do you think the economy soldiers on?
No, I think, and especially for small businesses, if you look at businesses under 50 employees, most of them aren't impacted by the tariffs because they're more regional businesses. Mm-hmm. But those who are, let's say 25 to 30%, they're impacted a great deal because they don't have the clout to change their supplier if they want to get out of China or something. So you do see a big impact for those who are impacted. It depends on the sector, and it tends to be a minority, but they will have a bigger impact. Those who aren't impacted, I don't think feel that concerned.
All right, let me throw this up as a jump ball to the table. We have seen business spending, capital expenditures, not growing at the rate that had been anticipated. And a lot of people say that's because CEOs are nervous. They're waiting to see what happens. Is there a point where they have to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and invest anyway because there is consumer demand, the consumer has held up? What happens in sort of that give and take?
Well, first of all, I'd say overall, a lot of the forecasts for a rebound next year are predicated on trade truce. So I wonder how those forecasts are going to be recalibrated. I think that's one piece of it. To your specific question, I think you get to a point where, yeah, you're going to have to say, these are the cards I'm dealt. And in fact, I think the market and CEOs have to get there. The place Jim Bullard is. Okay, this is not a one-off thing.
Right.
I'm surprised
got to live with it, and as a result, you're going to make your plans. Let's plan that this is the new normal.
My next study is going to be one that looks at whether or not, and I suspect this is what's happened, the sensitivity of the market to trade headlines. I think it has to be a bit benumbed by now.
I'm a little surprised, actually, that all you're seeing is a 95
I think it's come down.
A 95-point decline based on the idea that the president's saying today, you may not see a deal by December 15th. It may not happen until after.
You're suggesting normally, a year ago would have been a much bigger drop.
Move. I mean, at 95 points, that's nothing.
Exactly.
When you start looking at this as 1/3% on the futures.
I am shocked that to the degree that the market had continuously reacted to all of these trade headlines when, yes, it raises uncertainty, et cetera, but when you look at the actual numbers on the impact on the economy, yes, certain small businesses are hurt, but at a macro level, it was never going to have that huge an impact. It was more, what were the secondary consequences that Steve highlighted?
Right. How do retailers kind of dodge and make sure that they're not raising prices?
Yeah, but
consumers have continued
Michelle,
to
they've
spend.
turned out to be worse than expected. In other words, the dollar value as estimated or modeled was minimal. It was 0.1, 0.2. But the idea that you'd have this retrenchment in capital spending was not estimated. The idea that you'd have this fall off in trade war. And I will tell you, members of the Federal Reserve believe that, and by the way, the IMF as well, that a big piece of the global slowdown was related to this trade war. So it comes in two pieces.
Do we know, Michelle, what the impact is to China of these the tariffs that are already existing, the potential new tariffs? We're looking at it. We're all looking at it from a very American perspective. But the other big part of the equation is how much pressure are they feeling?
And that's part of the global slowdown that we're talking about China as well.
But to Tom's question, it's hard to separate this from all of the other things that China is doing, I would say, incorrectly, going backwards, right? The subsidies of the state-owned enterprises is a big one.
I tell you the number. The number is $53 billion. Their imports to the U.S. are down by $53 billion compared to the same period last year. Our exports to China are down by $14 billion. So there are 53 guys in China, men and women, who are doing $1 billion less business because of the tariff.
But we know how we know that we've been waiting forever for Europe to bottom out. That's not that may be exacerbated by the trade war that we started here, but they have their own issues, multiple issues in the slowdown. So looking at anything in a vacuum without considering all the other things, and then it all comes down to whether you think now is the time to confront 30 years worth of WTO abuses,
what
IP
Jim McGregor
abuses.
Said was
I mean, you and Kramer are like this on this entire issue. So if we can be at 3.5% unemployment and new highs in the stock market, why not take on China right now?
What if you
why
think
not take them on?
What if you think taking on China is a good idea, but you completely disagree with the means by which
I've heard that for 30 years. What are the other ways?
You haven't heard it for 30 years, Joe. Joe, that's a lie.
Okay, how are you going to take them on, Steve? Give me your.
China entered the WTO.
How are you going to take them on?
You would take them on with allies. You would take them on, by the way.
You always hear that, don't you?
Yeah, why not?
I would get, because that's what Democrats say we would have done without us.
Not the Democrats, the Republicans used to say it, Joe.
Here's what
Joe,
Jim McGregor said
I'm a
today
centrist Republican on trade.
Jim McGregor,
what you used to believe
Beijing,
before Trump came into office.
What he said today that surprised me the most is that, they had anticipated that this was coming, that the Chinese knew we were eventually going to be butting heads, that we come up against each other.
When you're doing things like what they do,
we've been pulling the wool over for a while. Eventually, we knew this was going to come to a head. But they're two different systems. They go up head to head. There has to be some point where
it's not a surprise.
The point they made earlier, the biggest thing with businesses right now is trying to hire the right people. They're not as concerned about the trade wars when what we hear. What they're concerned about is I can't find the people to fill the jobs. And what we're seeing this month, for example, is wages are really increasing now.
That's a good problem.
It's a good thing to have the work that is increasing. Hours are the highest increase we've seen in weekly hours in 3 years. Wages are up over 3% now across the board, all sectors, all regions. So the biggest issue for businesses are, can I hire the right people and get them in the jobs to fulfill the demand
Is it that I will go ahead and actually pay them the wages because the demand is still here, so I have to, it's the same question with capital expenditures.
Right, and it's across, it used to be minimum wage increases driving the wage increase. Now we're seeing in the last 2 months that all levels, so the fifth quintile of wages are going up as well.
Just in the last 2 months?
Just in the last 2 months. So you're finally seeing wages increase because they have the demand, which is a good thing, and they've got to fill and retain the people.
Do you think the stock market would be up 40% without the trade war, Steve? Instead of just 25? Probably 40 instead of
Joe,
25.
when you ask me questions, you want an answer? Because I'll give you an answer. I'll give you an answer.
Okay, what do you say 40? Would you just say 40?
What are you going to do, Joe? Let me tell you.
You say 40.
The president has now taken a page from the way other administrations dealt with the China trade problem. The phase one concept is almost precisely the way other administrations have partitioned problems with China into much more manageable pieces. The idea that the president was going to come in and solve the trade problem with China, which is a huge problem, through one fell swoop of a series of tariffs, has ended up, the president has learned, to be wrong. And now they're doing it in a way that is much more in line with the way other administrations, Republican and Democrat, have confronted these.
Have confronted but never gotten.
The Jim McGregor interview that we keep
true,
bringing up
Joe.
from
Did they get a phase one deal?
No,
If we get a phase one, what if it's followed by a phase two?
I highly recommend everybody go watch it on CNBC.com.
What is
Last
that?
you had on the Jim McGregor live from Beijing. What struck me was when he talked about the bidding for the tunnel in Stockholm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, where the Chinese came in and undercut everybody
Because
to a
they
discount
can.
of 70%.
Because everything is subsidized by the state.
So that
do you
in
deal
theory
with
is
that?
supposed to be handled by the World Trade Organization, right?
And
yet
by
it
the
keeps
way,
happening.
the World Trade Organization is starting to handle things like with Boeing, the big one that they just got, or the United States just got over the subsidies to the air manufacturers there. So maybe the WTO does start to take on some of these things. But you saw what happened.
Maybe it
when we
has
go after
already.
it. Yeah,
We
maybe.
win 90% of our cases at the WTO.
When
That's
we go
just a
ahead and
fact.
say that we're going to go and run with it,
When we
there
go and
is
run a
pushback,
case
too.
against the WTO, we win 90% of cases. We lose 90% of cases too.
Have you seen
because
it?
when
Even
somebody
the-
brings a
the
WTO
bidding
case,
process-
they're probably right.
But the bidding process that he explained exemplifies how China on the international stage
yeah.
will
Taking
use
advantage.
Needs to be dealt with. Have you seen the horrific CPI fears you were worried about? Have you seen it pass the consumers? When Marty was talking about, have you seen it? Let Marty talk. We know where you stand. We know where you stand. Well, because poor Marty, you cut him off because he was saying good things. He was saying good things, and you said, Marty, we don't want you here if you're going to say good things.
From the very beginning, Joe, I said tariffs were likely a deflationary or disinflationary impulse. And if you want
So
to go
where
back and
are
find
we
the
seeing
tape.
it mainly in the investment? Is that your biggest problem? Because you used to do the market's now down $1 trillion. It's now down $2 trillion. It's now down $1.5 trillion. Now we're up 20%, and you stop talking about the stock market and the deleterious
How can I
effect.
talk about it when you keep cutting me off?
My favorite thing.
That's going to be your only.
My favorite thing I've heard during this whole segment is Marty saying that wages across the wage earner spectrum, including the fifth quintile,
right,
are growing 3% plus.
Right. And hours worked are up the best we've seen in 3 years. So there is demand. The business is pretty strong right now. And frankly, business equipment investment is up in the last month. So we're starting to see businesses invest back in equipment.
Is up in the
I didn't hear
last
Steve
month.
Metz say
on
that.
the good
Is up in the
things
last
aid.
what?
Last month.
Just the last month.
Yeah, you had a good October.
Yeah, it was a
Which,
good
by the way, I
October.
reported.
There you go.
You missed that, Joe, didn't you?
You
missed that.
On his 3
I was sitting right here when that happened.
on your 3 a.m. report
it
on
was
the
7 a.m.
podcast. All right.
Steve, thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Did you have that look on your face? Like, oh.
Michelle,
It's
good to see you.
no,
Thanks
no,
for
no. I
coming
was
in.
smiling because it came back.
Okay.
And I'm smiling as I take us to a break. Before we head to that break,
Still
let's get a
running
check on
1.5
the
on
markets this
GDP.
morning. You're going to see that the Dow futures are now down by about 106 points. S&P futures indicated down by 10. The NASDAQ down by about 34 after the market turned in its worst performance in 2 months yesterday. Of course, that was a decline of less than 1%, but we'll continue to watch this today. When we come back, Apple's celebrating the best apps and games of 2019. We will talk winners and disappointments when we come back.
This winter, there's no place like Wicked, the award-winning West End musical. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz and how one came to be called good and the other wicked. Wicked at London's Apollo Victoria Theatre. Extra shows added for Christmas.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever.
So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
At Lidl, we're big on getting in the Christmas spirit with our award-winning 8-year-old Queen Margot blended Scotch whisky for just $12.99 and our award-winning range of Hortus Artisan gins and gin liqueurs from only $9.99. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
At TradePoint, we know that big jobs can mean a big shop around. We've a wide range of products from kitchens to plumbing to electrical or timber, so you can get it all in one place, 7 days a week, making big jobs smaller. So, for all you need, when you need it, get to TradePoint or go to tradepoint.co.uk.
Mate, this fan's suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding?
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles, backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and register by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look in the
Apple unveiling its favorite apps of 2019 at an invite-only developers event last night. Joining us to talk more about it is Todd Hazelton. He's the technology products editor for CNBC. Todd, this is an event that is brand new. They used to just put out a press release and say that's enough. Why do you think it warrants an event at this point?
Exactly. So I asked that specifically, and Apple said in the past they would have a list that they sent out in a press release, like you said, and they would have things like the best music of the year and podcasts and other things. And they said they felt that it was overshadowing the apps and the developers. So they wanted to hold an event specifically focusing around the people that are building popular apps, but not necessarily popular apps, the apps that Apple thinks are the best. So one of the things I found really interesting was that these aren't the most downloaded apps. They're not the apps that are generating the most revenue.
How'd they pick them?
What's that?
How'd they pick them then?
So they go through this crazy process I learned about where inside the App Store they have a whole 130 editors writing posts and reviews on new apps that come out throughout the year from October to October. And then that team gets together and picks their favorites among them. So it doesn't have to be, popular apps like TikTok. They look at things like user experience, what they call magic because it's Apple, and other things. And then they say, okay, here's our final list. And they bring it up to Phil Schiller, the head of marketing, and he gets the final word on whether these get awards or not. And so
he can blackball somebody?
Apparently he can. That's what I learned yesterday. So they might have, 2 or 3 apps, and then he can say yes or no to some of them. And then what it comes down to is awarding the developers. They bring them into this event that's new last night. It was a cocktail party sort of environment, and we got to see the apps, which is really important because normally this press release would come out, and it would be a list of sometimes obscure apps, right? Like I hadn't heard of some of them, but we actually got to sit there, play with the apps, with the developers, get demos, talk to them a little bit, and learn a bit more. And this is important for one really big reason. Apple's facing antitrust concerns about how it places apps in the App Store. So if you search for, say, a certain app, maybe Apple's app comes up first. So I asked some developers a little bit about that and what they thought. And one of them actually gave me a really nice response that I wanted to read. And he said, basically, if you think, and this is the Spectre app that won the Best App Award, if you think a feature is a business, you're bound to run into disappointment. He would be worried if he made something easily copyable, which Apple could copy. And he once worked on an app that did page curls in an e-reader, for example. Apple copied it and made a better version. And he said, I kind of deserve that. So basically, the idea here is that these are apps that are unique, that we don't see everywhere else, that aren't being copied. and Apple thinks they're worth highlighting.
Let's talk about the iPhone Game of the Year.
Yep.
Something called Sky Children of Light by that game company. What is that?
So it's this fun world game where you kind of explore the world. I was playing it last night, actually. And what really surprised me was that it felt like I was playing on a console, so like an Xbox or a PS4. The graphics were really impressive, and they now support game pads, which they didn't until iOS 13, which came out in the fall. So you can run around and play with other gamers and stuff like that. It was really neat. But again, one of the things I would say is that this is a more obscure app, maybe one that I wouldn't have stumbled upon, I wouldn't have written about, had Apple not highlighted it. Normally, I would have looked at something like the new Call of Duty, but Apple highlights these games. And one of the things I noticed, actually, is that they highlighted games with really good soundtracks. That was one thing that was in all of their picks.
Music matters.
Yeah.
You have another one or two we can highlight really quickly that people may not have heard of before?
Yeah, so I really like Spectre. That was the number one, and I actually took a few sample photos. I think we can pull them up, but out in Times Square.
This is the iPhone app of the year.
This is a camera app, and what it does is it basically takes long exposure apps, something that
this picture on screen is not doing it justice. I don't know if we can get a close up on the one that you're looking at on your iPad. Hey, Kyle, maybe you take a shot of this one.
It does
turn
what
it right here to Kyle.
Normally a professional photographer would do, and that's long exposure shots. So basically, I took pictures outside in Times Square this morning, and it removed all of the people from the picture. You can also take, which is neat because Times Square is never empty.
Can we do that in real life?
Yeah. I just did it right before I came in here. And then you can have things like, when you look at traffic and the lights of the cars are kind of blurring by. You can take really cool pictures like that. So something unique that Apple doesn't have in its own app.
We're totally out of time. They're going to yell at me. But what you set this up, the guy who's in charge of marketing kind of has final say on what this has.
Yes, that's what I learned yesterday.
That they are trying to get out of antitrust concerns that are being brought. Do you think that this is being used in some way to make happy the guys who are most likely to speak up and say something?
I do think so. I think in some ways this is saying, hey, we want the developers to get in front of the press.
We're celebrating
everybody's happy. Yeah, this is for you. Apple's revenues are up 8% for the $12.5 billion in revenue services business in Q4. So that's a big business for Apple. It needs to keep these people happy, and I think this is an event we'll continue to see.
All right, Todd, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
By the way, you can read more about his Apple App Story on CNBC.com. When we return, your latest corporate headlines. The futures this morning have been under pressure. Dow futures right now down by 101 points. Squawk Box will be right back.
Interactive Brokers.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
On 3, our unlimited data is actually unlimited, like 4 reels. That means you can scroll and scroll and scroll through all the Black Friday deals.
Because we have no speed limits, no data caps, and you'll be 5G ready at no extra cost.
Wow, so many savings.
Our Black Friday deals are now on. Save up to £480. Switch to 3, in-store or online. See 3.co.uk/unlimited-data. Savings on selected phones on 24-month contracts. Ends 5th of December. Terms apply.
I'm Ben. I used to be homeless. I'd sleep in the train station, stuff newspapers in my clothes to keep warm. Sometimes I thought I wouldn't wake up. No one should have to live like this. The Crisis Christmas Centre was a safe place. We got hot meals, health checks and support. In the new year, they helped me find work and a home. This Christmas, you can reserve a place for someone who's homeless for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk today and help someone like me take their first steps out of homelessness. Thank you.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Hey, turn it down. Now play the big hit. That's better. Get our lowest ever price on these Bose QC35 wireless headphones.
with noise cancellation and voice control in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. Or get £50 off Bose SoundLink on-ear wireless headphones. Either way, you get 6 months free Spotify in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply.
At TradePoint, we know that big jobs can mean a big shop around. We've a wide range of products from kitchens to plumbing to electrical or timber, so you can get it all in one place, 7 days a week, making big jobs smaller. So, for all you need, when you need it, get to TradePoint or go to tradepoint.co.uk.
Couple of corporate headlines for you. Steelmaker AK Steel is being bought by mining company Cleveland Cliffs in a stock swap deal. AK Steel shareholders will receive 0.4 Cleveland Cliffs shares for every share they now hold. U.S. gene therapy company Audentes Therapeutics agreed to a takeover by Japan's Astellas Pharma for about $3 billion in cash. The deal's worth $60 per share, more than double yesterday's close for Audentes. And
do you know the Latin root of Audentes?
I took 4 years of Latin in case I ever moved to Latinia, which that was supposedly going to prepare me to speak any language. And you know what I remember? Agricola, agricolae. Porto, portavi, portatus. That's about it.
4 years.
That's about it.
I thought maybe you could
quid pro quo. Quid pro quo, but now I use the word bribery because it polls better. Dow Component United Healthcare issued a 2020 adjusted earnings outlook that falls largely below consensus forecasts. However, the health insurer also gave an upbeat 2020 revenue outlook. An Atlanta businesswoman is set to become an interim U.S. Senator from the state of Georgia. Georgia's Republican Governor Brian Kemp is expected to pick Kelly Loeffler for the job, which we talked about yesterday. She is now CEO of a Bitcoin trading and storage platform company that is majority owned by NYSE parent ICE. That must be how you knew her pretty well.
A very close friend. She's an excellent pick. She will be, look, it's time for the Republican Party to let more women in. I think there's 7 women in the U.S. Senate. And the real question in this seat, this is an important seat, because if you think of the Georgia senatorial seats, historically they've been quite Democratic. Senator Nunn, Miller, so on and so forth. So
Georgia Democrats.
Georgia, pardon me. So they need
Georgia Democrats, which are different than Democrats everywhere. Believe me, Sam Nunn is different than
same as Zell Miller. Same as Zell Miller.
Well, they haven't buy from Indiana yesterday.
Yeah,
they need to win. This is only a 1-year appointment, and there's an election next year, and I think she'll be a great candidate.
We've got some, not we, but Republicans have some women, Tom. I know we can use them in every party. We could use more and on boards. And okay, I know that, but it's not. So you specifically said the Republicans in kind of a weird way. I thought so. Yeah.
But I think she'll be good.
I think the Republicans more than the Democrats need to.
Yeah. There's more. I think there's 17 Democratic women in the Senate.
In the what?
In the Senate. Is that right?
He was just talking about senators.
Yeah.
I was just talking about U.S. Senators.
All right.
By the way, audentes is a Latin word. It comes from a Latin word, audens, which means daring, venturing, risking, or being eager for battle.
Now we know. There we have it.
You were right.
I don't think I ever, that may have not...
Crossed your...
No, I mean, Porto's carry. Agricola is a farmer. That's about it, unfortunately. No, there's some legal terms, I guess, right? That I know another one. A lot of our segments go on ad nauseum. I think that's...
All right, let's end this one. Still to come on Squawk Box, much more of the news of the morning. President Trump saying it might be better to wait until after the 2020 election for a trade deal with China. That has the markets on edge somewhat this morning. Futures are down, but by just under 100 points right now. Dow futures down by 98 points. Also, higher education being put to the test. With college closings on the rise, is this a sign that a crisis is brewing? We have that report in just a bit. And later, the Elon Musk defamation trial begins today over pedo guy. That tweet, the British diver who brought the case, and Elon Musk both will be there. A live report is coming up. Squawk Box will be back after a quick break.
As a principal, I can tell you this.
This winter, there's no place like Wicked, the award-winning West End musical. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz and how one came to be called good and the other wicked. Wicked at London's Apollo Victoria Theatre. Extra shows added for Christmas.
At Lidl, we're big on getting in the Christmas spirit with our award-winning 8-year-old Queen Margot blended Scotch whisky for just $12.99 and our award-winning range of Hortus Artisan gins and gin liqueurs from only $9.99. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Witch tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit witch.co.uk.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10-gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hey, turn it down. Now play the big hit. That's better. Get our lowest ever price on these Bose QC35 wireless headphones. With noise cancellation and voice control in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. Or get £50 off Bose SoundLink on-ear wireless headphones. Either way, you get 6 months free Spotify in the Black Tag event at Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply.
I have no deadline, no.
Mr. President,
In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China.
For more on the president's comments about possibly waiting until after the 2020 election to strike a trade deal with China, we're joined by Eric Knudsen. He is, are we pronouncing it okay today?
We are,
Let's do it. Knudsen, multi-asset chief investment officer at Neuberger Berman. Why have it if you don't?
You gotta use it.
We say that all the time. Be proud, say it loud, say it proud. You changing anything based on the latest nuances to the deal and what we're hearing from the president?
No, our expectation was that if there was a deal, it was going to be a skinny or light deal. It was probably going to disappoint relative to what was priced into markets, especially this latest run-up in equities, and that in 2020, we were going to have to look for other drivers of positive market developments. We need to see a handoff from central banks to fiscal authorities. We need to see businesses start to invest instead of just relying on the consumer to drive the economy.
Right. Do we need a China resolution for the economy and the stock market to continue to do well?
I think most of the potential damage around trade conflict is already priced in. Has
it been significant, Eric?
Damage associated with trade?
Yeah.
Some to the U.S., some modest hit on GDP, maybe 25 to 50 basis points negative on the U.S., higher for China, 50 to 100 basis points of negative GDP impact. Biggest damage was collateral damage on Europe, other major exporters, Japan, South Korea. U.S. and China have largely reconfigured and restructured to prepare for and be
positioned for kind of an ongoing lack of trade peace, let's say, as opposed to conflict.
What about this next wave of tariffs? Is it linear? So is it another 25, 50 basis points here in the U.S. and 50 to 100 in China, I think you said?
So you look at the incentives for the current administration, they do not have an incentive to add another tariff on December 15th to create more volatility. We think of this administration as having a volatility budget associated with trade conflict. They can spend some of it, but they're not going to want to spend a lot of it in creating another negative December like we saw last year. The big risk, we would say, would be their escalation with the Chinese, which we don't think is likely. Neither side is strongly incented to create more volatility here around trade, although we don't see strong incentives for some kind of grand bargain, maybe some small agreements, maybe now later than what we were initially anticipating. The big concern would be a pivot to Europe or broadening the trade conflict, and there are some rumblings of that now overnight.
So you gave the counterfactual for the GDP. If there hadn't been a trade war, what do you think it would be for the stock market? What do you think it would be for the unemployment rate? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What would it be for wage gains? So would the market be up twice as much? Would unemployment be 2%? Would wage gains be 7%? I mean, some things are at historically low levels, like unemployment. Other things are at historic highs, like the market. So are you telling me this has been a really negative thing for the United States, the trade war?
Well, certainly if you translate those numbers into earnings and apply a current valuation on the stock market, then yes, the stock market could be somewhat higher based on earnings growth this year, which are going to be flat to slightly up.
Could be 30%. It could be by the end of December. We could be up 30%.
But what if earnings growth this year were 10%?
The multiple might contract
5 or 6%.
I don't know. It's hard to put. It's just hard to imagine that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't.
Certainly.
Also, I wonder what part of that is low interest rates, right? If interest rates
we've
were
known
higher,
that. Yeah, we've had that for how long? 15 years.
15 years. But if the economy was slightly better,
but it looks like they're not going up anytime soon. Yeah,
right.
I think what Jim Cramer made a point yesterday I thought was really interesting. Just the idea that if you think prices are going to go up from here just because of multiple expansion, just because people are willing to pay more for the same thing, maybe you should think again on some of those issues. I think he's a little concerned just for the short term at least.
Well, indeed, and that's why we are cautious right now in equities. We're neutral U.S. stocks. We're starting to look for opportunities overseas. We pulled back from non-U.S. stocks at the end of the summer. A thesis where you're owning stocks because you expect multiples to expand, we don't think is a sound fundamental thesis. It can be a thesis. It's more speculative. We feel that we need to see earnings growth and evidence of earnings growth to drive equities higher rather than simply expect the forward PE to go from over 18 right now to 19 or 20. It certainly can. We haven't had that late cycle kind of exuberance blow off of
you think that there are quantifiable impacts on earnings per share based on the tariffs?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
On the big multinationals?
Oh, you look at what corporations have. You just listen to the CFO and CEO comments for the last 12 18 months.
They like weather too.
Look at CEO confidence. Look at.
You think there'd be more investment?
Exactly.
Really?
The U.S. economy has been driven by the consumer over the last 12 months. Right. CapEx has been sliding. It's been in certain industries. It's been down. You take away that uncertainty, you would have seen greater investment. You would have seen better outcomes. Certainly, the U.S. economy is in a pretty good space when you look at consumers, unemployment, consumer spending. In 2020, we need to see some handoff from the consumer, from central banks to fiscal policy in Europe to business investment, or else the risks of recession increase.
All right. Derek, thanks.
Thanks, sir. Pleasure.
When we come back, a breakdown of what's been moving this morning, including some of the FANG stocks getting downgraded. Squawk Box will be right back.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10 gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Smart Sports Wagering Talk is now on TuneIn. This is Brett Musburger. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Search BETR. Be better informed. Be better prepared. And remember, cash and tickets is what it's all about.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to every NFL game live as it's happening.
LaShawn McCoy has an opening on the right side, punches into the end zone for the touchdown.
Or catch it later on demand.
Offset backs behind Mahomes. The give is to Williams. Starts right, cuts it back to the left, and flows into the end zone for the touchdown.
You call the plays. Follow the NFL anytime, anywhere, all season long with TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. It's College Football Conference Championship Weekend, and TuneIn is your home to hear all the champions crowned. This Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the SEC Championship. The undefeated LSU Tigers, led by the Heisman frontrunner quarterback Joe Burrow, look to cap their perfect regular season. However, it won't be easy as their opponent, the Georgia Bulldogs, will be hungry to pull off the upset and earn their ticket to the college football playoff. Catch all the action on TuneIn. Search college football to find your game.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. I'm Dominic Chu. We've got a small slate of analyst actions affecting the communications services sector. We're going to start off with some coverage initiation for shares of Facebook. Those shares are off about 0.5% or so, roughly 21,000 shares of pre-market volume. The social media giant gets initiated with overweight ratings and a $230 price target by analysts over at Piper Jaffray. They like the lower trajectory of expenses and the idea that advertisers are sticking with Facebook despite recent PR woes, as well as a solid core biz. So those shares are now off about 0.2%. Next up, we've got shares of Alphabet, which are down fractionally as well, just around 3,000 shares of pre-market volume. The parent company of Google and YouTube is also getting started with that analyst coverage at Piper Jaffray. They've got an overweight and a $1,500 price target. They like the company's positioning within a lot of different areas for growth here. They could see some upside long-term from initiatives like Waymo's self-driving cars, also Google Cloud early as well. And then we're going to end here on shares of Netflix, which are down around 2% or so, roughly 25,000 shares of pre-market volume. Citigroup is switching the analyst coverage of this stock. As a result, the new view there is a downgrade to neutral and a $325 price target. They think Wall Street estimates are too high on the stock. They see some subscriber ads either lowering or some of those costs rising, Becky, so those shares off 2%. Back over to you.
All right, Dom, thank you for the update. When we come back, is a college closing crisis brewing? Scott Cohn has a preview of all of that. Scott.
Hey, Becky, we've been talking for years about student debt. This is the other college debt crisis. The colleges themselves, and particularly small liberal arts schools. We're going to have some pretty startling numbers coming up, but also we'll visit this school in Ohio where they think they may have found a solution. That's coming up when Squawk Box for a Tuesday comes right back.
You're cooking the lunchroom ready to sell.
Yeah, I consulted with your grandmother's doctor.
This winter, there's no place like Wicked, the award-winning West End musical. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz and how one came to be called good and the other wicked. Wicked at London's Apollo Victoria Theatre. Extra shows added for Christmas.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect family holiday. And with flights from 20 UK airports, we make getting there a whole lot easier. Book now with thousands of free kids places, plus spread the cost and pay £0 deposit when you choose direct debit. Book online or in store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to limited availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
Students aren't the only ones crushed by debt. Private colleges are under stress and some are going out of business. Our Scott Cohn joins us now from one Ohio school that is determined to buck the trend. Hey, Scott.
Yeah, they're not going to go out of business here, Joe. This is Hiram College. It's a small liberal arts school about 40 miles outside of Cleveland. Their answer to all of this is to literally change the definition of liberal arts, which seems kind of drastic, but here's what they're up against. These colleges are closing left and right. According to Moody's, they're expecting 15 colleges, when all is said and done this year, to close. That is the most in years, and 3 times the rate of just 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, I should say. In fact, Moody's says 1 in 5, 20% of small private colleges are in what they call fundamental financial stress.
It's a very competitive environment out there. And so a high cost model, they have small class sizes, high fixed cost, and it's posing financial challenges for them.
So here at Hiram, they say they saw this coming a while ago when they were trying to refinance their debt. So they're doing what they call the new liberal arts. They've done away with some of the less popular, less career-oriented majors like religious studies, and instead they're moving to things like career-oriented things like criminal justice, requiring students to do internships before they graduate.
We looked at the graduation requirements. We looked at technology. We looked at the 21st century skill set and mindset that students need to demonstrate to employers.
This has not been without some pain. They have cut about 20% of the faculty over the last several years, a lot of it through attrition, as they continue to try and retool. But they feel like this is a model for the future, and the rest of higher ed, guys, will be watching.
All right, Scott, thank you very much. For more on the sustainability of high college tuition, let's bring in our guests. Joining us right now is Neil McCluskey, Cato Institute's Center for Educational Freedom Director, and Andre Perry, Brookings Institution's Metropolitan Policy Program Fellow. Gentlemen, I think we can all agree that college tuition is soaring, whether you're looking at private colleges or even public in some cases. What would you do to try and bring down cost? Andre, what do you think?
Yeah, the first thing we really need to do is do a reset. I was a college administrator for years, and I've never seen a college tuition hike a president didn't like. When something went wrong in the College of Natural Sciences, they lifted tuition for the entire student body. At some point, we need to control costs and set caps or limits on how much you can raise tuition. And that's why I'm supportive of states that are trying to bring more transparency to the college financial crisis.
Andre, how do you think government subsidies for loans has impacted tuition increases, making it very easy for students to borrow money even if they're not otherwise able to afford it?
Well, you called it. Because of there's so much cash in terms of the federal government allowing folks to take out loans, the colleges acquiesce and rise their tuition prices, and that's a core part of the problem. Certainly, there are other issues. There's wage stagnation and other issues, particularly with low-income Black and Brown communities that where they're not able to afford rising prices. But as long as colleges can raise their tuition, they will, and that's a problem.
Neil, how would you address it?
No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the evidence is pretty clear that colleges are always looking for money because they always see something they think is important to do. Mm-hmm. And as long as the federal government supplies lots of loans and also grants, but the loans are the biggest problems, and tax credits and lots of other aid to students, the schools will always look to those students as a source of funding. The other thing is colleges are also sort of caught because students with a lot of money available to them often tend to demand from a school some expensive things. That's why we see water parks in some colleges. And a college often feels they need to supply those things or they don't get the students. And those small liberal arts colleges have the toughest time doing that.
Do colleges have to go through a crisis in order to fix this problem? I spoke to a president of a Catholic college who told me he expects half of Catholic colleges to close over the next decade.
Neil?
Yeah, well, I mean, a crisis always tends to focus people, and higher education, I think, is no different. If they can continue on doing what they've always done, they're going to tend to do that, and they need some sort of shock to change what they're doing.
Neil, Andre, I want to thank you both for your time today. It's good to see you.
Thanks.
You said a water park?
Yeah, well, in high-end gyms, like all kinds of
stuff.
You know
what you need, a monorail.
Fancy.
Turns
okay,
out
Simpsons.
We got coming up futures dropping on President Trump's trade comments. That story next.
I love Black Friday. Busy shops, crazy people, average deals. It's so much fun.
Said no one ever. So be savvy and do Black Friday the easy way with Smarty. Grab a huge 100 gig data SIM for just £17 a month on the Mega Plan. And with no credit checks, speed restrictions or contracts tying you down, you can kick back with the best Black Friday deal around. Now that's Smarty. Search Smarty Mobile to find out more, but hurry, as this deal won't be around for long. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
At Lidl, we're big on getting in the Christmas spirit with our award-winning 8-year-old Queen Mongo blended Scotch whisky for just $12.99 and our award-winning range of Hortus Artisan gins and gin liqueurs from only $9.99. Big on a Christmas you can believe in. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes an eye.
Mate, this van's suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding?
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and register by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
Ah, Christmas. A time for sharing gifts and laughter. And photos and videos. Make the most of it with a SIM-only deal packed with data from Tesco Mobile. Like a 10 gig SIM for just £13 a month. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile today. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 29th of December. 12-month contract and unlocked 4G-enabled phone required. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The Better Network is now on TuneIn. This is Brent Musburger. Search the Better Network. That's the BETR network. And then let us get you better prepared to better enjoy the day in sports. The NFL, college football, basketball, hockey, baseball. Sharpen your edge. The Better Network is now on TuneIn. Be better informed. Be better prepared. Search the Better Network. That's BETR.
Breaking news, futures fall as President Trump says a trade deal with China could wait until after the 2020 election.
An Elon Musk tweet lands the Tesla CEO in court, and we're not talking about the funding secured tweet. It goes back a year and a half to that cave rescue of young boys in Thailand.
And a big league ratings battle, the NFL's up, the NBA's down. But how much is cord cutting involved? The final hour of Squawk Box begins right now. Good morning and welcome back.
Every compliment comes.
Welcome back to Squawk Box here on CNBC, live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. You're a natural. I'm Joe Kerner along with Becky Quick. Tom Farley's in. Andrew's off today, and Tom Farley
playing Andrew Ross.
Yeah, playing.
Today.
But need more.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah,
Joe are. Joe says we're
You're
the
right
same person.
there. You're just. We need that component. That the whole yin and yang thing, and Becky's sitting moderating. Anyway.
Somebody sent me a referee hat, no joke.
They did.
Honestly, mailed it to the office.
We are, he's chairman and CEO of Farpoint and a CNBC contributor. Where's the futures? They're down triple digits. They got worse last time I looked. Down 173 on the Dow, down 56, 57 on the NASDAQ, S&P down about 16. Treasury yields at this point, about 178, and that's trade. Remember, we were back to 180. Things are going well. We're at 185. Things wrench gets thrown in the works, and then we go back down. But by the way, it doesn't take much for you to be left of. It's all
to be left of you.
Right.
To be
it's
left
all
of
relative.
you.
Don't feel bad.
Yeah, it's a high bar.
Yeah, exactly.
It was President Trump's comments on the possibility of a trade deal with China, the idea that trade deal could be delayed until after the 2020 election. That was what first hit the futures this morning. Eamon Javers joins us with more on the TikTok and how this went down. Hey, Eamon.
Yeah, Becky, that's right. The president is in London today. He's traveling for a big NATO event throughout this week. He was taking some questions from reporters and was asked about this idea of a China trade deal. He suggested that he might want to wait until late next year. Here's what he said.
The China trade deal is dependent on one thing. Do I want to make it? I have no deadline, no. In some ways, I think it's better to wait till after the election. You want to know the truth? I think in some ways it's better to wait till after the election with China. But I'm not going to say that. I just think that. I just tell you.
So the president's saying, in some ways, I just think it might be better to wait until after the 2020 election. Not clear here whether this reflects some underlying problem in the ongoing negotiations or if the president just sort of ruminating about which way to go. You remember the president announced the phase one deal, as he called it, back in October. He suggested at that time that it was all but done. He had the Chinese officials in his office at the White House and said they just needed to paper it. The White House never, though, put out any specific details of what was in the deal that the president said they agreed to back in October. Now the president's suggesting that there may not be a deal until after November of 2020. And I asked Kellyanne Conway yesterday at the White House, the president's advisor, whether or not the president had made a mistake back in October to announce a deal before it was finished. She said no, and she asked whether or not we had any indication that there was a deal or not. She seemed to be suggesting yesterday that there was something going on behind the scenes that we simply couldn't see, and the White House had no obligation to tell us. Today, the president's suggesting here that he might want to wait until 2020. We'll have to see what the rest of the White House economic team says during the course of the day today to get a sense of whether this is just the president sort of chin scratching here or whether this is the president suggesting that might be where this lands. No deal until after the election, guys.
You're part of the meeting.
All right, Eamon, thank you very much.
You bet.
Let's talk more about what this latest trade news means for the market. Joining us is Jim Urio. He's managing director at TJM Institutional Services, also a CNBC contributor, and CNBC senior markets commentator Mike Santoli here as well. Mike, what do you think? We watched this morning. Futures went from up to down to not down so much to all of a sudden down by 170 points.
It's a perfectly handy excuse for a pullback. Right? We went up 9% almost in a straight line, no pullbacks from October 8th or something like that until a couple days ago. So you were ripe for kind of some disturbance in here to the bull case. And the very, very gentle consensus bull case was de-escalation on trade. We have an inflection point to the upside in the global industrial economy. Both of those things got challenged with the ISM number and then this. So I think it's an exacerbating factor. I don't think it's possible for the markets in any systematic way, in any kind of rigorous way, to discern what the meaning of the president's comments were. It could easily have been one of his normal conversational switchbacks. It could have been a signal that maybe he's getting tough. It could have been a signal maybe no deals on, maybe putting China on. Who knows? But the point is that the premise of de-escalation and a rubber stamp deal and no tariffs December 15th is at least challenged.
We've mentioned it before. Don't you get nervous when he feels like he's got some house money to play with and he's negotiating?
The pattern has been there, exactly, right. When the market's at a high and
got 25 percentage points on the S&P to work with, I can give back 3 or 4 to force China, to force their hand.
That could be, although I would say that works better if the rest of the economic numbers are cooperating and you don't actually have it snowball into a larger concern about the economy.
It feels like Groundhog Day. A year ago, December started, everything was going great, and within 2 weeks, the Dow was down 15%.
Everything wasn't going great. The market was going down for 2 months by then. But it did seem like December, you were going to lift out of it. The first day of December, you were up 1%, but you're still well off the all-time high. So I almost feel like now it's normal pullback time until you get a few percent below here, where it's like, oh, maybe the rally since late summer was a little bit on a false premise.
Jim, jump in here. What do you think right now? How are you feeling?
To put a finer point on what Michael said, for someone in this negotiation thing to say that they're not pressed for time, to me does not seem newsworthy at all. So that lands me back at kind of what Michael said too. From October 10th, we had a one-way street. Yesterday, we made a higher high and a lower low, and we closed on the lows. To think there's some nervousness in the market of people who were reminded what risk was. Just yesterday on Worldwide Exchange, we talked about all the short positions in the VIX. To me, that's some complacency. Sudden people wake up and like, wow, there is some risk in the market. So I think we could trade the S&P all the way back down to 30, 35. That's 2% from where we are now, just to shake out people from this latest move. But I don't think it's newsworthy at all. I think the one thing that is a little bit disconcerting is that the dollar broke on this. I'm hoping that was because Trump also was talking about how Powell should be lowering rates and going to zero and the currency, whatever. I'm hoping that was part of it too, but that's a little bit something to notice. But other than that, I think it's business as usual.
You talk about complacency. Is that something you see on the floor there?
Well, it was. I mean, up until yesterday, the VIX was low. Short positions on low were relatively high on the VIX. And again, it happens the same way all the time. And shorting VIX is usually a great play up until the moment that it's not, and you lose 5 times more than you made. So I don't understand that trade, how everybody piles into it so willingly, but there was some complacency, yes.
Mike, we've got less than 2 weeks until that December 15th deadline for additional tariffs. What would the market's reaction be if the next tranche of tariffs were actually put on?
You tell me what it's going to do in the next 2 weeks, because it is going to be all about what's priced in. We got up to a point in the market where relief from the fact that the economy was in a 2% mode became just sort of the assumption as opposed to the upside surprise. I do think that if we get a new round of tariffs on December 15th, the market's not going to take it particularly well, because that seems like an exacerbating factor.
We've had a number.
Mike, one more thing too. If the lingering trade talks gives the Fed ground cover to stay dovish, despite the fact that they haven't seen any real destruction to the macroeconomic condition, so I don't think it's all bad if things linger a bit.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the market seems to really like the idea of 3 cuts and then the Fed goes on hold. It fit this really tidy script from the 90s. If we're talking about a little more of an open-ended easing cycle to restart that soon, yeah, I think that's it's a little bit of a different storyline at a time when we really need to see the economic numbers and earnings start to come back. Look, from October, early October till Friday, you had Apple at $140 billion in market cap. You had Microsoft at $100 billion in market cap. Had nothing to do with exports and China trade. It had to do with sentiment getting better and people thinking that the economy was inflecting and they were willing to take on more risk. So I think you have some unwind of that. Yesterday, the Nasdaq was the number, having nothing to do with the ISM manufacturing index, those companies.
Right. Market was up 7% since October, to your point. We've had a number of guests on the last 2 days that have said basically no chance that the new tariffs get put on December 15th. That concerns me.
Right.
That concerns me because,
Absolutely.
to your point,
the baseline assumption.
Right. If those do get put on, how much volatility are we going to see?
I think then all of a sudden we're on slow down watch again. We're on what's Europe economic numbers looking again? What's China's economic data looking like? Because yesterday we were up at this hour because China's numbers were good. Yeah. So I think we're back on that same treadmill if we get those. And all of a sudden next year they're already in the base, and we operate on a year-over-year clock, and so that's not a problem if you don't get new tariffs in there. I think that we can easily absorb it.
Mike, thanks for coming in. It's great to see you. Jim, thank you for joining us.
All right, coming up, a big league ratings battle. We're going to talk about the differing fortunes of the NBA and the NFL in 2019 and why cord cutting might not be hitting everyone equally. As we head to break, take a look at the futures, now down 190, headed for 200 perhaps. Stay tuned, you're watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
This CNBC program is...
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low? Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
This winter, there's no place like Wicked, the award-winning West End musical. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz and how one came to be called good and the other wicked. Wicked at London's Apollo Victoria Theatre. Extra shows added for Christmas.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference.